The roots of this chaos lay in a conversation one night between Tadao Fujun and a Federation transcendent. The latter had assured him, on Misty Mountain, the only real threat is the intelligent tree demon. The rest of the beasts are weak and insignificant. If you can capture just one creature from the Misty Great Mountain and hand it over for research, I can provide you with the artificial genome files you desire. Don't worry, as long as you avoid that tree demon, you'll be completely safe. The man lied so effortlessly, without hesitation. Though part of the Federation, his loyalty was questionable at best. Had he truly cared for the Federation, he wouldn't have given such reckless advice. Now, with Bayou's beasts charging toward Sunset City, the Federation would have to face the consequences. Sunset City's forces quickly detected the approaching beasts and immediately went on high alert. Defensive weapons were activated, and all armored vehicles were mobilized. As dust clouds rose in the distance, they escalated to a level 1 battle readiness state, deploying all their defensive weaponry. Tanks rolled out from the southern military district, artillery trucks from the northern district, and countless armored divisions surged in from the east and west. The entire city was raised to red alert. Soldiers mounted cannons on the walls, swiftly taking their positions. Their discipline and efficiency were nothing short of remarkable. Leading them was a high-ranking transcendent, none other than the man who had orchestrated the ninja mission into Bayou to steal the beasts. He stood atop the city walls, facing his troops and the array of tanks and weaponry. This man was the Lord of Sunset City. Finally revealed was Niyuan, a rank 2 transcendent. His massive, muscular frame was paired with a chiseled, delicate face exuding a murderous aura, clearly a man of power. Internally, Niyuan cursed the Yinghua ninjas. Those idiots, weren't they supposed to be masters of stealth? Instead, they've brought an army of beasts to my doorstep. Yet, despite the chaos, the result was somewhat satisfactory. If the ninjas hadn't captured a beast, the beasts wouldn't have gone berserk like this. In his mind, everything was a sacrifice for science. If understanding why Bayou's beasts were so powerful required sacrifices, so be it. The future of humanity was worth it. Whether or not humanity could develop further didn't matter right now. At this moment, things were clearly spiraling into disaster. Laser sights from countless weapons scanned the forest, passing over Niyuan's body. Initially, they illuminated nothing but shadows. Then, out of the darkness, a brilliant white claw emerged, slamming into the ground and sending clouds of dust flying. It was the claw of the ancient emperor crocodile. But it wasn't alone. The wings of the white crane, the tusks of the frost mammoth, and the fangs of iron pillar followed, along with a trio of troublemaking beasts and countless others. They had come to shatter the facade of Sunset City. Each creature was a fierce beast, but it was the leader of the pack that made Niyuan's face darken. A massive black hoof, veined and muscular, stomped onto the earth. Its enormous frame pulsed with spiritual energy, an overwhelming presence that induced psychological collapse at a glance. Every laser sight converged on the black bull, standing on 2 legs, a creature towering 4 to 5 times over Niyuan's size and wielding a weapon. In front of all the soldiers in Sunset City, Bull Demon bellowed, "Return our young, or today I will bathe Sunset City in blood." The sight of a mutated beast mimicking human form, radiating the aura of a gang leader, was enough to confirm that capturing a creature here was no simple task. Niyuan, though deeply involved in the affair, wasn't foolish enough to admit it. With a bold voice, he declared, "I don't understand what you're talking about." Bull Demon roared, its patience at an end. Swinging its massive axe, it aimed directly for Niyuan. The attack was so fast it struck in less than a blink. Fortunately, Niyuan didn't blink, barely managing to block the blow. Had he failed, his skull would have been crushed. Even blocking it, he found no relief. The strike carried the full force of Bull Demon's rage. Gritting his teeth, Niyuan strained to hold his ground, but was still pushed backward. Gasping for air amidst the dust, Niyuan's soldiers were thrown into chaos at the sight of their commander being forced back. As a rank 2 transcendent, he was supposed to be their strongest warrior. Yet a single blow from this beast had left him winded. Worse still, his arm had sustained significant injury from the clash. And this was just the opening exchange. The situation was dire. Niyuan was smart enough to know he wasn't a match for the horde of mutant beasts, and neither was Sunset City. War was absolutely out of the question. Faced with Bull Demon's fiery assault, Niyuan called for negotiations. "Since you have intelligence, why not settle this peacefully?" But Bull Demon wasn't in the mood to waste another word. "Hand over the wolf and the great serpent, and we'll retreat." Talking peace after starting a fight? Ridiculous. Those ninjas had captured not 1 but 2 mutant beasts, driving the bull to the state of rage. Bull Demon declared that if the beasts weren't surrendered, it would overturn the entire city to find them. Overturn the city? Don't forget the ceasefire agreement between Bayu and the Federation. Niyuan snapped back, just as a bullet whizzed out of nowhere. The shot grazed Bull Demon's hair and struck a mutated Tempest wolf in the pack, wounding it terribly. It howled in pain, its soul practically flying out of its body. It wasn't just any wolf. A bullet penetrating its hide could only be a custom-made beast round. These supercharged bullets, infused with high-grade spiritual energy, were designed to pierce beasts ranked rank 1 and above, not to mention stage 9. The sniper was undoubtedly one of those ninjas, firing from a distance to stir the pot. This is what happens when you mess with me. But the dirty tactics didn't end there. The wounded wolf's death sent shockwaves through the ranks of the mutant beasts, turning the tense atmosphere electric. Niyuan's painstaking efforts to mediate had gone down the drain. He spun around, yelling, "Who fired that shot?" "Not us, boss," someone shouted in defense. "Damn it, doesn't matter who shot, it's war now," Bull Demon roared, declaring full-on assault. "After that shot, it's all just self-defense." Sunset City was doomed, and the cause had conveniently slipped away amidst the chaos. The plan shifted. Forget the gene modification records. Both beasts were to be taken back to their country. The Black Armored Army, Sunset City's elite force, consisted of supers over Stage 8. It was the fastest formed and strongest unit of the Second Restoration era, renowned as the ultimate generation of warriors. As the battle raged, Bull Demon's forces wasted no time. Soldiers fired like mad, machine guns rattling through the night. Memories of Bayu's previous tragedy, where not a single human survived, fueled their vengeance. Bright bullet trails lit up the dark sky, but the beasts burned with equal fury. Bull Demon roared orders. "Flame birds!" Some vultures took to the air, flinging fireballs with every beat of its wings. This technique, Meteor Flame Rain, sacrificed its own feathers to launch flaming projectiles, setting the city walls and soldiers ablaze. Every feather was a fiery weapon, and the chaos escalated. Bull Demon bellowed again, summoning Big Bird. Leading a squad of peregrine falcons, Big Bird launched a coordinated attack on the city walls. 8 falcons crashed into the barriers, shaking the structure to its core. Another hit, and the walls would crumble. Knowing the city's fate hinged on those walls, the supers launched a desperate defense against the falcons. Swords raised, they charged, yelling, "Die, stupid birds!" But the falcons didn't die. They did. One brave soul aimed his glowing sword at the falcons, but before he could land a blow, a blinding green light from White Tiger's wings knocked him back. The tiger's heated slap sent him flying into the wall, where he died, mouth agape and minus a few teeth. The soldiers kept firing, barely holding the ground troops at bay. But the most dangerous weapons weren't their bullets. It was the twin-barrel cannons. Seeing the cannons irritate his comrades, Kuizhou, the colossal beast, stomped the ground and scaled the wall in just 5 steps. Reaching the top, it crushed the cannon beneath its massive weight, its glowing eyes glaring at the terrified soldiers. Against the backlight and dust, Kuizhou appeared even more monstrous. But even without the dramatic backdrop, its sheer size was enough to make anyone wet their pants. Kuizhou began devouring humans on the walls, causing panicked screams and chaos. Below, the other beasts joined the slaughter. A wild boar used its mighty charge to bulldoze several supers at once. Meanwhile, a blue streak flashed across the battlefield. It was none other than the honey badger, cloaked in an electric storm, zipping through the fray and mowing down soldiers left and right. But humans wouldn't take it lying down. A white-haired super with a green sword lunged at the badger, while another black-haired fighter with a purple blade attacked from behind. Both screamed, "Take this!" Trapped midair, the honey badger couldn't dodge, but instead of bracing for impact, it curled up, muscles tensing. Did they think it was defending itself? Wrong. The honey badger was charging up an enormous thunderstrike. With a burst of electric energy, it electrocuted both attackers at once. After the badger's flashy moves, Golden Monkey decided it was his turn. Wielding a knockoff staff, it clobbered 4 soldiers simultaneously. Those struck spun in circles, dizzy to death. The mutated Tempest Wolf, enraged by the loss of its packmate, tore into the battlefield with savage ferocity. Every bite it landed was a deadly one. Don't be fooled by its reputation as a multi-species delivery worker. This wolf knew how to fight, and it fought well. The entire construction crew of red ant-like beasts was doing great out there, so why wouldn't the wolf hold its ground? As the battle dragged on, humans found themselves on the losing side. Bullets still rained down, but the mutant beasts kept pushing forward. Realizing that regular ammunition wasn't cutting it, humanity turned to heavy weapons. Yet, before they could deploy them, the vultures burned everything to ash. Still having feathers to spare, the vultures kept flinging fire, turning every human weapon into blazing scrap. Niyuan finally realized the consequences of his reckless actions. The black armored army of Sunset City, who were supposed to be elite fighters, had fallen with the first wave of attacks. These soldiers were supposed to be capable of going toe-to-toe with beasts of equal rank. But why? Why did they crumble like dolls under the mutant beast's onslaught? There was no time for shock. Niyuan would soon experience the pain himself. Bull Demon stomped hard and loomed before Niyuan. Only now did the beast's second-in-command feel like speaking. "You thought we were just ordinary mutant beasts?" Niyuan panicked, cursing, Damn it all!" before charging forward in a blind attack. He swung his sword, but Bull Demon stopped it bare-handed. That made him completely speechless. The beast gripped the sword tightly, blood dripping from its hand. "Look," Bull Demon said, "we bleed too. We feel joy, sorrow, and rage. We're no different from humans." Bull Demon's words carried meaning. Mutant beasts experience pain and emotions, the full spectrum of joy, anger, love, and sorrow. Their lives mattered too. It wasn't just human lives that held value. But Niyuan refused to listen. His eyes burned with fury and disdain. That deeply ingrained sense of human superiority wouldn't allow him to see otherwise. Animals are always just animals, his gaze seemed to say. Humans are the rulers of Earth. Humanity's greed knows no bounds. Outside the city, the battle raged on, with soldiers fighting tooth and nail. All manpower was concentrated there, leaving the inner city as empty as a ghost town. Taking advantage of the situation, Qingzhao, Flash, and Thorn infiltrated the city. Their mission? To locate the missing children. And their method? Flash's 2 antennae, sticking up like a treasure scanner, scanning for spiritual energy signals. Thanks to the antennae, they located it, a stray armored vehicle among the many that had joined the battle. It was rushing to leave the area. "There! Southwest!" Flash announced the position before darting off at full speed. The hope was to catch up in time, retrieve the children, and withdraw. The beasts might have arrived in a storm of fury, but they weren't fighting aimlessly. Their attacks were organized, planned, and carefully grouped. They weren't there to massacre. They just wanted to reclaim the children taken from them. Tonight, Sunset City was facing its triple disaster, and every household had gone dark. The entire city was eerily silent, with the only noise coming from the battle outside the walls. The clamor of conflict, combined with the rising dust clouds, made it seem like a sandstorm had hit. But Sunset City wasn't near any deserts. It was surrounded by forests. The colossal dust cloud marked the beginning of the wall's collapse. Those walls were built to provide peace of mind, but they didn't even last through the night. As sections crumbled, the mutant beasts surged into the city like a tide. Inside the city, not a soul stirred. Only Tadao Fujin raced through the empty streets in his vehicle. The sound of the wall crashing down was deafening. Even after driving 200 meters, he could still hear it. Sweat drenched him as he gripped the wheel, his heart pounding like he was standing on the edge of the abyss. He prayed that Sunset City could hold for just a few more minutes so he could escape. As he sped through the streets, a strange figure suddenly appeared, flashing a toothy grin. "Where are you off to in such a hurry on this fine night?" The darkness obscured the figure's face. "Let me borrow a little light to see you better," the stranger said, igniting a flame that flared too brightly, sending up a cloud of ash and dust. Though the light was brilliant, it revealed nothing through the haze. For a moment, Tadao Fujin thought it might be the beast side, but something felt off. Who was this then? As the dust began to settle, a silhouette emerged. The hairstyle, the outfit, all of it pointed to a superhuman. It seemed the chaos outside had left this lone superhuman to chase after the Yinghua Nation's group. Or perhaps this person was simply that strong, daring to go it alone. With just one move, the superhuman smashed the armored vehicle into the ground, forcing the ninjas to jump out of it. Tadao Fujin angrily shouted at the Federation's superhuman, accusing them of betrayal. The Federation lied. "From the start, you never intended to give us the gene modification data." Yinghua, he argued, was justified in taking the great 8-headed serpent for themselves. "You tricked us first, so don't blame us for retaliating." But if the Federation never planned to share anything, then Yinghua could forget about taking the serpent home. "If you want it, prove you're capable." The superhuman seemed ready to take on Yinghua's infamous trio. Unfortunately, the vehicle didn't just carry those three. It also held several others, including an elderly man. The oldest and most battle-hardened among them, he was the strongest of the ninjas, and eager to test his skills against the Federation's superhuman. The ninjas were one thing, but when had Liu Sheng, a high elder, snuck into the city? The Federation wasn't the only schemer. Yinghua was equally cunning. Sending a senior elder meant they weren't just here for the serpent, they were after the gene modification data too. The elder declared, "The Federation isn't worthy of our trust." With the facade dropped, Yinghua revealed their true intentions. "It's a good thing we didn't come alone. Bringing reinforcements was the right call." Hearing this, the Federation's superhuman decided there was no room for diplomacy. Kill them all. Leave no survivors. Liu Sheng's command sent the ninjas charging forward, but before their attack could land, a loud crash echoed from the wall. Another massive section had crumbled. While they glanced at the chaos by the wall, a new threat emerged. Dust erupted from the ground beneath the armored vehicle, rising in a thick, dark cloud. For a moment, it seemed as though Yu Ziyu himself had arrived, but from within the haze, a towering figure appeared, Qingzhao. The leader of the construction team made his entrance, complete with dramatic effects that could have been straight out of a CapCut edit. Even Liu Sheng, who was over 60, had never encountered such a scene before. Though the elder ought to have struck Qingzhao for kicking up dust in his face, he was too stunned to react. But it wasn't just Qingzhao's appearance that shocked him. What truly rattled Liu Sheng was the terrifying sight within the dust, a ghostly female figure lurking in the mist. Before the ninjas could respond, her branches had already impaled several of them. Losing comrades so suddenly threw the remaining Federation superhumans into panic. They were so fixated on Thorn's eerie presence that they failed to notice death creeping closer. Flash's green eyes gleamed as he darted behind the group of pseudo-extraordinaries. Without a word, he sliced through their necks like a hot knife through butter. The sight of him weaving through the crowd and cutting them down was chilling. His method? Kill the leader first. By the time the poor guy slumped to the ground, motionless, the underlings finally realized what was happening, but it was already too late. The situation wasn't looking very good. Liu Sheng, having lived through countless years, naturally sensed this. He quickly ordered Tadao Fujun to take the baby beast and escape. But the Qingzhao group wasn't here to negotiate. They wanted the beast cub. No way were they letting Tadao Fujun flee. Thorn lashed out her branches to give chase, but Liu Sheng leaped in to block her. Of course, Liu Sheng wasn't just anybody. Facing Thorn's direct attack was not for the faint-hearted. He gripped her branches tightly, growling, "I will not let a monster like you get in our way." Sis here was dubbed a plant-based entity, not a beast. You're done for with her now. Meanwhile, Flash and his team obviously aimed to stop Tadao Fujun, but let's not forget the Federation had the same goal. With no captain around, the vice captain stepped up, shouting, "Block that envoy." Before he could block anyone, Qingzhao had already tackled him with her massive frame, his thick lips letting out a ferocious "Ha-ya!" And that was the end of his story. The body count in this area was almost complete, leaving only Tadao Fujun alive. There he was, running off with the cub, swearing up a storm. "Damn it, bastard!" while sprinting and leaping with all he got. This was Speed Chaser level territory, and only someone like Flash could keep up. Despite giving him a 30-minute head start, he was still caught. Flash, now face-to-face with the superhuman, smirked and said, "Where are you running to now, little human?" Trapped, Tadao Fujun could only grit his teeth and curse, "You bastards! Dogs!" Actually, it's 100% ant-made, and just only Flash was enough to make him tremble. Back to the front line. Looks like it's the time for Ancient Emperor Crocodile to perform. With a thunderous roar fit for a protagonist, it charged headfirst into the wall. Not just a crack, the whole thing collapsed. Behind the crumbled wall wasn't empty space, but rather razor-sharp teeth that would make humans cry out in terror. But hope wasn't lost. Humanity was still firing away with great enthusiasm. With the wall down, they even rolled out tanks. Bullets, shells, and missiles of all kinds rained down on the Ancient Emperor Crocodile. While human firepower wasn't exactly ticklish, the crocodile had seen it all. One hit to the eye could blind it, but would it land properly? Bullets never even got close. They were incinerated mid-air. The flames? Courtesy of Bro 8, not a new skill from the Ancient Emperor Crocodile. Look closely, folks. Clinging to its left leg was Kuizhou. Bro 8 may be small, but don't underestimate him. Even a speck of his spit would burn someone down to the bone. And if one spit wasn't enough, don't worry, there's always round 2. Everyone gets their turn, no need to rush or shove. Elsewhere beyond the wall, Ni Yuan was knocked back several meters. No surprise, considering his opponent was Bull Demon, the family's second eldest. This one's the gentlest of the bunch, mind you. Thankfully, Ninetails was too busy absorbing the Fire Spirit Stone. If it were here, this city would burn for 3 days straight. Tonight, it was just Bull Demon and the others. Still, the second eldest wasn't going easy. A few exchanged punches left Niyuan gasping for air. These humanoid beasts were absurdly strong, but Niyuan couldn't afford to lose. Determined, he poured all his spiritual energy into his sword. The fiery red energy overflowed, enveloping the hilt. With one mighty slash, he unleashed the Desert Storm Blade Strike. A blazing red wave shot out, but alas, it failed to sever Bull Demon. All this time, you thought I only knew how to swing an axe, huh? That sword energy trick of yours? I just used a little gravity to pin it down. Easier than eating a piece of cake, Bull Demon said smugly. Poor Niyuan, his all-out attack got blocked like it was nothing. The guy stood there frozen, pale as a ghost. Done already? After Niyuan finished his move, it was Bull Demon's turn. He raised his battle axe high, his eyes blazing with rage. At this point, there was no turning back. With a crazed glare, Bull Demon unleashed his lava battle axe straight at Niyuan. There was no time to dodge. The poor guy had to take the full brunt of the attack. Well, if you think about it, it's kind of an honor, right? After landing the blow, Bull Demon didn't stop. He slammed Niyuan into the ground, sending a cloud of dust soaring several meters into the air. The dust mixed with Bull Demon's heavy breaths as his rage slowly subsided. Under Bull Demon's feet, Niyuan was done for. His body was embedded in the ground, mouth agape, eyes rolled back. Well, he died in one piece. Better than I expected. Thought that hit would slice him clean in half. That's what happens when you go looking for trouble. Let this be a lesson, folks. Don't be like Niyuan. After Bull Demon had pummeled Niyuan into a pulp, the battle was pretty much over. The dust settled, and the soldiers inside the city lost all hope. Their pride, their rank 2 transcendent city lord, had been killed in what should have been an even fight. A soldier, battered and bruised amidst the rubble, gazed at the fallen city lord and couldn't hold back his tears. We've grown so much stronger, so why can't we win? It's laughable, really. Humans train to get stronger, but did you think the beasts wouldn't do the same? Hell, the whole crew's been gobbling up magic stones like candy, and tonight it's not just any beasts visiting the city. 7 out of UZU's 9 demon beasts are here. Who could possibly stand against that? While Bull Demon and the gang finished their fight, Flash still hadn't returned with the young ones. Strange. What happened there? Oh my god, blood everywhere. The entire arm was gone. Yet, somehow, one was still alive and running. He is impressive enough to escape from Flash? That's no small feat. As he fled, Tadao Fujin cursed. These beasts are beyond belief, ridiculously strong. He had barely managed to escape thanks to a secret technique to hide his aura. Any closer, and he would have been a goner. No matter what, he had to bring that 8-headed serpent back to the country. But his stubborn obsession blinded him. Even if he realized the truth now, forgiveness was no longer an option. Flash from above had already closed the gap, chasing him relentlessly. Tadao Fujin felt a palpable fear. How did it find me? I hid so well. The damn ant was like a leech. Convinced it was the end, Tadao Fujin braced for death. But then, out of nowhere, the golden ant froze mid-chase. It stopped entirely, perching on a tree, just staring after him. A chill ran down his spine. What's it looking at? Who cares? I need to run! Tadao Fujin bolted with all his might, only to find someone waiting for him up ahead. It was Xiaoling. Her entire body radiated fury, her gaze sharp as ice. But Tadao Fujin, being cross-eyed, didn't notice. Oh my god, Ling! Xiaoling from the Federation is here to help Sunset City? A lifeline. He dashed toward her, shouting about the city being under attack and pleading for help, but first, he begged her to save him from the beasts chasing him. Xiaoling listened to every word, but she didn't reply. She just glared at him, silent and unyielding. Frustrated, Tadao Fujin screamed louder. Please save me! He thought he was finally safe now. But before he could even shut his mouth, flames burst out around Xiaoling, engulfing everything. Among the flames, one stood out, a fiery hand that grabbed Tadao Fujin like he was nothing more than a tiny mouse. He thrashed and screamed, clueless about what was happening, until he saw the serpent wrapped around Xiaoling's arm, caressing her like an old friend. Stunned into silence, he finally understood. Even more shocking was seeing the ant, relentless like a leech while chasing him earlier, now kneeling before Xiaoling. It opened its mouth and called her Big Sis, leaving Tadao Fujin utterly shaken. Big Sis Xiaoling was there to deliver a message to Flash. Tell the second brother to retreat. The Federation's reinforcements were closing in fast, and lingering around would only cause unnecessary trouble. Flash respectfully obeyed. As for Tadao Fujin, he had seen far too much, and facing the Mist Nation meant his survival was a waste of karmic balance. Xiaoling, her eyes filled with murderous intent, decided to end him with her flames. Tadao Fujin tried to scream, Wait a moment! But but Xiaoling shoved fire straight into his mouth. In moments, he was consumed by flames, his entire body reduced to ashes, not even bones left for a burial. With that settled, Peregrine Falcon Leader flew swiftly to report back to Bull Demon. It let out a loud squawk, announcing that the young ones had been rescued. Bull Demon turned to the others and roared, "Retreat!" At that command, the entire group spun around and marched out. On Qingzhao's side, Peregrine Falcon also delivered the good news. With their work done and the old man dealt with, there was no reason to stay. As the group thundered back home, Thorn asked Bull Demon why they didn't just seize the city and teach humans a lesson. He replied that it was Xiaoling's order and they must follow it. Fair enough. After all, Wolf and the eight-headed serpent were unharmed. If they'd lost anyone, there'd be no explaining that to the boss. Bull Demon then turned to the ancient Emperor Crocodile. "Count the casualties. The lightly injured can soak in the crocodile pool. The severely hurt ones should use the divine trees pool." The ancient Emperor Crocodile nodded, glanced downward, and got to work. And just like that, the matter was done. Yuziu's beloved family headed back joyfully, leaving Sunset City in ruins, with smoke and flames rising into the sky. It seemed like everyone had left, but then a massive beast's foot stomped into the city. Behind the foot was a fierce white maw lined with sharp teeth. But it wasn't just a beast, it was accompanied by riders. A troop of knights, clad head to toe in medieval-style armor, were mounted on big pandas instead of horses. These weren't the short, stubby pandas of Yuziu. These ones were hulking and menacing, but no less battle-ready than their counterparts. Leading the knights was a rank 2 transcendent named Lan Yi, at the head of dozens of other riders. He stood silently, surveying the devastation. Arriving late because they rode pandas instead of horses, they now stared at the smoldering city in rage. The growing power of the Misty Mountains, it was something humanity could no longer afford to underestimate. Lan Yi wandered through the wreckage, his anger simmering. Suddenly, he snapped his head toward the forest. Though his eyes were obscured, he seemed to sense something unusual. Deep within the woods, there was an unfamiliar presence. Using some strange ability, Lan Yi pinpointed it as Qingzhao. The young beast had stayed behind to cover the retreat of the others. Despite hiding miles away in the trees, Qingzhao had been discovered. Terrifying. Before Qingzhao could flee, within 10 seconds, a massive black figure had already launched itself toward the exact spot where he stood. The dark figure landed with an earth-shaking crash, shaking an entire section of the forest. Dust and smoke filled the air, but surprisingly, no one seemed to have been crushed underfoot. Lan Yi appeared a bit disappointed. A jump that cracked the ground like that, yet no target in sight. Odd indeed. He had sensed something, but when he got there, there was no one. Was it an illusion? His senses hadn't been wrong, though. Qingzhao had managed to burrow underground to escape, avoiding the need to flee above ground. Even so, he wasn't unscathed, coughing up blood as he fled. Thankfully, most of the group had already retreated. Had they lingered any longer, facing an opponent like Lan Yi could have led to total annihilation. Qingzhao might not be one of the 9 demon beasts, but he wasn't weak by any measure. For him to be this frightened spoke volumes about Lan Yi's strength. It was clear that after this assault on the city, Yuziu's family wouldn't have peace for long. They might soon face adversaries stronger than any they'd encountered before. The battle at Sunset City ended, but the news spread like wildfire, making the Misty Mountains even more infamous. Across the Federation, the reputation of the Mist Nation now rivaled that of any TikTok influencer. It had long been a forbidden land, but now it terrified humanity even more. A mountain full of monstrous beasts creating a full-blown organization of terror? That's nightmare fuel. Their boss, rumored to be the strongest beast in the Federation. Their staff, a mix of ruthless brutes, not a single gentle soul among them. And their so-called company but was doing business at all. It was extortion. They just torn down an entire city. If that doesn't piss you off, nothing will. People were slamming their meeting notes on tables out of sheer frustration. Last night, they overturned a city, and now everyone had to drag themselves into a morning meeting. Was the beast tide in Sunset City caused by the Yinghua emissaries? Someone asked. Of course. Lan Yi's team investigated and found the cause. The humanoid beast didn't come to shop. It came demanding its young. Before the fight broke out, it was already furious, shouting about the whereabouts of its child. Ni Yuan and his men thought it was just a pretext for an invasion. That's what the soldiers recounted, at least. Even if Ni Yuan were alive to tell the tale himself, he probably wouldn't admit he'd stirred up trouble with Beiyu out of sheer boredom, only to get his face smashed in. With the truth obscured and the lines between fact and fiction blurred, The Ni family head was livid when he heard the news. Ni head firmly declared that the Yinghua emissaries were to blame. As proof, the burnt corpse had a cage for a young beast beside it. Who else could have done it? Ni Yuan is innocent. He didn't know anything. It was all the Yinghua emissaries' doing. He roared, demanding that the Federation teach Yinghua country a lesson. He proposed sending either the Iron Knights or the Dragon Court Guards to give them a proper lesson. The Iron Knights were well known, but the Dragon Court Guards seemed to be on another level entirely. Faced with the Ni head's fury, the high-ranking commander considered for a moment. Out of 3 parts respect and 7 parts shared anger, he finally made a decision. First, all material aid to Yinghua would be cancelled. Second, a delegation would be sent to inquire about the situation. If their answers weren't satisfactory, the Dragon Court Guards would be dispatched. When it came down to it, humanity wouldn't dare provoke Beiyu. After losing an entire city, they still chose to let Beiyu be. People only bully those weaker than themselves. Showing off to someone stronger would only get them smashed. And to think, Yu Ziyu hadn't even shown up for this battle. His employees had fought all night, and he only heard about it the next day. Big Bird had been chirping non-stop, but Yu Ziyu didn't bother himself with matters like the Yinghua emissaries or their karma. Let's keep a low profile for now, and leave it to Xiaoling? She can handle it. For now, he sent Big Bird back to the company to tell the family to tone it down. Don't act rashly in my absence, Ziyu mentioned. In this situation, aside from the absurd Yinghua Nation and the ridiculous Sunset City, the Iron Knights are definitely worth noting. It seems the Federation still has a trump card up its sleeve. That's exactly why Yu Ziyu warned his beloved family not to stir up any more trouble. If the Federation is pushed too hard, who knows what they might do. The enemy's true strength is still unclear, so we shouldn't be too showy. You all must be extremely cautious, and if anything happens, wait for me to handle it when I return, Yu Ziyu instructed. Big Bird listened attentively. Normally, after hearing such orders, it would let out a characteristic squawk, but this time, the little bird actually opened its mouth and shouted, "Yes, sir?" Terrifying, isn't it? Who'd have thought that letting it poop on your head back in the day would pay off? Now it could speak human language and was surprisingly reliable. With the order received, it darted off immediately. This left Yu Ziyu standing in silence amidst the icy landscape. Of course, he was worried. He'd only just stretched his roots away for a bit, and now a giant drama had exploded back home. How could he not be on edge? As he pondered, Wine Deity shuffled out with a cloak, rubbing its eyes. "Who were you talking to just now?" it asked groggily. "Doesn't matter who I was talking to before," Yu Ziyu replied. "What matters is that I'm talking to you now, little panda. Wake up. Little panda," Yu Ziyu began seriously. "If we suddenly had a conflict with your kin, could you handle them?" It was barely morning, and the boss was already asking weird questions. Wine Deity scratched its head, unsure. "Pandas usually just follow whoever treats them well. We're pretty simple that way," it admitted. The little panda went on to recount how it once escaped from the zoo. It had invited its older brother to join, but the brother refused, saying, "What's wrong with eating and waiting to die? Life's so chill. Why would I bother running around out there?" Apparently, Wine Deity's brother was so lazy even Yu Ziyu couldn't help but feel exasperated. "Even honey badgers aren't that lazy," he muttered. "Anyway," Wine Deity yawned, "I'm heading back to sleep. It's not that I'm lazy, but ever since I got to this freezing Northland, I've been unbelievably sleepy. Must be some kind of hibernation instinct kicking in." Yu Ziyu let the panda waddle off, his mind still swirling with thoughts about the panda species. Unlike lower-tier magical beasts, pandas were known for following the strongest around them, displaying strong individual will. If ranked, pandas were among the highest potential magical beast species. They had the strength of bears, the speed of cats, the bone-crunching jaws of dogs, and claws that were nearly indestructible. Add to that their unique devouring talent, which let them absorb a wide range of minerals. With this ability, they could harness any elemental power by consuming the corresponding stones, simultaneously enhancing their physical strength. The more they consumed, the stronger they became. The Iron Knights that Qingzhao encountered last night wouldn't stop at their current level. They'd continue to grow, possibly even clashing with Beiyu one day. "Ugh, how tiring," Yu Ziyu sighed. "Maybe I should start building my own powerful army too. If there's going to be a fight, it should at least be evenly matched." Currently, Beiyu's magical beasts were already quite strong, but when it came to humanity's elite forces, only the 9 demon beasts could truly stand a chance. The rest of his creatures? Mostly construction workers, delivery beasts, and troublemakers. He didn't even have a proper combat unit yet. Even if they're lazing around, I'll have to set some deadlines, Yuziyu thought. People say not to interrupt a meal, but no one said anything about naps, he grumbled, extending his roots to grab Wine Deity by the legs and haul it outside. At first, he did it gently, but when the panda refused to wake, he yanked hard enough to nearly jolt its soul out of its body. Yet, despite being dangled upside down, the panda remained dead asleep, snoring away. Assigning deadlines to this lot is harder than it looks, Yuziyu muttered. Being a boss wasn't easy, especially with such stubborn employees. Midday naps? Drooling? Sleep-talking? Wake up now, or I'll slap you, Yuziyu barked. And slap he did, wasting no time in smacking the panda awake. After a good sleep, I'm refreshed. Wine Deity stumbled to its feet, its face bruised and battered, but its spirit oddly invigorated. All right, as long as you're awake, Yuziyu said, satisfied. Your task is to find the polar bear's lair for me. Understood? Understood. Wine Deity saluted enthusiastically, brimming with energy as it marched off. Yet a few steps later, it tripped and face-planted into the snow. Feeling the cool, soft fluff beneath its face, it muttered, "This snow is so comfy. I'll just nap for a bit." And with that, it ignored its boss entirely, snoozing away. Embarrassing, Yuziyu sighed. It won't be long before I have to spank that panda again. Today, let's take a look at the ocean. There are still countless mysteries in the deep. As the camera dove underwater, it revealed a rank 1 sperm whale. The whale was massive and chubby, but even so, it was dwarfed by the colossal tentacle coiled around it. With a single, gentle squeeze, the tentacle had the whale in its grasp. The owner of that tentacle? A gargantuan octopus with 2 glowing eyes that pierced the darkness. The octopus coiled around the sperm whale so effortlessly, it looked like it was holding a tiny anchovy. The whale seemed downright puny in comparison, which wasn't exactly terrifying at first glance. But let's put things into perspective. An adult sperm whale typically reaches about 20 meters in length. If the average human height is 1.7 meters, it would take roughly 12 people to match that. And that's just a regular sperm whale. This particular one from this bizarre ocean was at least 100 times larger, yet the octopus snatched it up in a single motion. With its jagged, mismatched teeth, it tore into the whale, blood splattering all over its face as it feasted on seafood right there in the deep sea. This many-legged creature was none other than the Octopus King, currently at rank 3, equal to our own Yuziyu. At the moment, Yuziyu and the Octopus King were blissfully unaware of each other's existence. They were neither friends nor foes, but the world is small, and their paths were bound to cross soon. Meanwhile, Yuziyu was busy reviewing his skill tree. Apart from his rank 4 branches, most of his other abilities were at rank 3, specifically his roots, along with skills like Willow Blade, Fog Spread, Illusion, Blood Pact, Earth Element, Spirit Field, Regeneration, and the Reign of Vitality were all at rank 3. Then there were abilities like Wooden Dragon and Blizzard, which were still at rank 1. Lastly, he had skills like Purification and Flaming Shatter Rain, which were still at the beginner stage. Purification had been around for a while, but Yuziyu hadn't upgraded it yet, mainly because he was broke. Now that he had some evolution points, he still hesitated to upgrade Purification, choosing instead to focus on Wood Dragon and Blizzard. Having absorbed Ice Spirit Stones, Yuziyu's spiritual power had soared to a staggering 6 million, with over 4 million evolution points to spare. It would be wasteful not to spend them. Plus, upgrading these newer skills would undoubtedly boost his power further. He started with Blizzard, leveling it straight up to rank 3. With a simple root tap, 400,000 points vanished from his account. Yet, he didn't feel much of a difference. Raising his branches, he didn't even see a hint of frost. It seemed this power wasn't something that visibly manifested on his physical form. Next, he moved on to Wooden Dragon. This one had been neglected for a while, as he'd prioritized defensive abilities. But it was also ridiculously expensive. 500,000 points for an upgrade. Back then, he couldn't afford it, but now, he clicked that upgrade button without hesitation. The moment he tapped the root, not only did 500,000 points vanish, but a blinding display of crimson and violet light erupted around him, like a bomb detonating at the base of the willow tree. Along with the light came a searing wave of pain, causing his hair to stand on end as he let out a blood-curdling scream. It had been ages since he'd experienced something like this. Strangely, it could bring anyone a twisted sense of excitement. Back when he first upgraded his roots, he'd writhed in agony, just like this. This time, though, the pain from upgrading Wooden Dragon seemed far worse. Yuziyu screamed relentlessly, unleashing a blinding beam of spiritual energy that pierced the sky. Even hundreds of meters deep under the sea, the sound could be heard. Not just the octopus king, but countless other grotesque creatures swam toward the northern realm, all eager to investigate. Fish of every kind rushed toward the light as if BTS had just appeared in the street, desperate for autographs. Before Yuzu could recover from the upgrade, trouble was already brewing. The most aggressive arrival was a mutated orca. It had been drawn to Yuzu's immense spiritual power, just like the Warak snake had been in the past. These creatures were here to feast on the willow tree. No, have mercy, my body still hurts. Yuzu inwardly panicked. His body was still reeling from the upgrade, and the orca wasn't going to wait for him to recover. It charged, its eyes gleaming with hunger, determined to devour every root and leaf. But desire alone doesn't guarantee success. Yuzu wasn't about to let himself become lunch. Quickly, he retaliated with his frost-infused branches, slamming a glacial landstrike into the orca's maw. In an instant, the beast froze solid on the spot. Not just the orca, the entire expanse of ocean in front of Yuzu had turned into a frozen wasteland. The water, the fish, the waves, all of it froze solid, forming jagged crystalline spikes that radiated outward from his spiritual force. For the first time, Yuzu realized the extent of his power. With his ice spirit force combined with rank 4 branches, he could freeze half an ocean. He was elated, but his joy was short-lived. The pristine ice suddenly cracked. A strange, sharp spear, bristling with tiny serrated edges, shot up from below. It was a mutated swordfish, striking so swiftly that it caught Yuzu completely off guard. The swordfish burst out of the ice, its sharp spear-like nose aimed directly at his face. Sparks and flashes exploded from the impact. A sneak attack was clever, sure, but landing a hit, not a chance. There was no way this thing was going to touch Yuzu's core. With a quick, crushing counter, the swordfish met its end. Yuzu just gained 170,000 evolution points, the largest haul he'd ever gotten from a single kill. No wonder the blood spray looked almost artistic. It was a statement piece. This was Yuzu's way of flexing. To kill a creature with such a high point yield as easily as slaughtering a chicken, it was proof that the willow had grown exponentially stronger. The 2 crazed fish that had attacked earlier didn't even make him break a sweat, but the ocean wasn't going to settle down with just 2 fish. Yuzu shifted his gaze downward, his eyes piercing the frozen surface of the sea. Calmly but firmly, he called out to the guest hiding below. The guest had clearly been waiting for the invitation. As soon as Yuzu spoke, the ice trembled violently. Poor thing, hiding under the ice for so long must have been freezing. It had been waiting for the host to finally acknowledge it, and now it was time to make an entrance. A little peeved, the guest decided it was only fair to shake things up a bit for the host. Fully emerging all at once would have been too forward, so the octopus king extended a single tentacle above the ice about 7 to 8 times the height of the host, as if to greet. Softly at first, but somehow, gigantic ice chunks flew everywhere, smashing into the poor face. He didn't dare blink, afraid to miss even a second of the spectacle. From beneath the icy layers, dozens of tentacles wriggled up, twisting and swaying in all sorts of shapes, fierce yet calm, chaotic but eerily silent. The ferocity came from the tentacles and the breaking ice, while the stillness emanated from the space, from the monster's gaze, compelling everyone to breathe carefully. The octopus king loomed before the towering willow tree. The scene felt strange yet familiar, reminiscent of when Yuzu first faced the Warak snake, a showdown between equals that radiated an oppressive tension. The octopus struck first, opening its toothy maw to aim for Yuzu's leafy canopy. It looked menacing, but Yuzu was no longer the same as before. Fear? Not a trace. If anything, he felt excited. His first clash with an oceanic overlord. Time to see which beast was stronger, one from the sea or one from the land. And who do you think worried most about this brawl? Was it the multi-species alliance or the marine creatures? No, humans, of course. At the Luo Nation Spirit Energy headquarters, the place was in chaos. Red alerts plastered every monitor, reporting spirit energy readings breaking all previous records. The massive surge was traced to 2 colossal beings out at sea. No one knew what they were, so they had to put the images up on the big screen. Under the boss's roar, the staff quickly displayed the footage. The first thing they saw was a massive black root slamming into the ground. Following that, the scenes only grew more terrifying, drenching everyone in sweat. Tentacles and serpentine roots clashed head-on, 2 equally matched monsters, both terrifying, neither yielding. But the real horror triggering their panic was Yuzu himself. Registered as a resident in Bayou, Yet here he was vacationing at sea without informing the authorities. Barely a moment passed before the screen glitched, shaking violently like an old black and white TV. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't get the signal back. Such a shame, missing out on prime drama. The fight was on just a few minutes after they see each other. The purple octopus took the lead again. After its earlier chomping attempt, it now tried a life-sucking grapple. Its tentacles coiled tightly around its opponent, using suckers to drain spirit energy through contact, bit by bit. Yuziyu wasn't a fan of this sensation. He struck back by unleashing his serpentine roots to sink their fangs into the octopus's head. One fierce bite seemed to kickstart the octopus's brain. Enraged, it hurled all its tentacles at Yuziyu, wrapping him up, pulling at him in an attempt to drag him into the sea for a bath. But Yuziyu wasn't having it. Ever since his reincarnation, he hadn't bathed, and he wasn't about to start now. Struggling, he flung out his willow blades, flying knives, relentlessly slicing the octopus's tentacles into bite-sized pieces. Fresh and tasty. Help yourself. Actually, never mind. I'll dip them in soy sauce and eat them myself. The octopus king, writhing in pain, decided to abandon its tentacles and chomp directly on Yuziyu's head. With one massive bite, it swallowed him whole, dirt and all, treating the earth as seasoning. Holding him in its mouth, it chewed and chewed. Must have been tasty, right? The harder it bit, the tougher it got, like trying to munch on a tank that retaliates. Beams of light, sharp as missiles, pierced through the octopus's flesh, clustering into one massive column that tore through its mouth. Blood sprayed everywhere, forcing the octopus to spit Yuziyu out. Despite all the chewing, he hadn't lost a single leaf, while the octopus looked like it was in bad shape. Smoke billowed from its battered mouth as it retreated cautiously, sensing the danger. But it wasn't about to give up on the pink broccoli, and Yuziyu wasn't about to forgive it either. After being shoved into someone's mouth and drooled on, he wasn't letting it escape. The sky blazed as countless fireballs of all sizes appeared, marking the real start of the battle. The fight between a willow tree and a colossal octopus was anything but ordinary, with effects rivaling in concert. The Octopus King glanced up at the dazzling lights of the flaming shatter rain, dazed for a moment. As it marveled at the spectacle Yuziyu had prepared, a growling voice interrupted, "Goodbye." In a flash, the entire display collapsed onto the octopus, uprooting rocks and smashing through the icy plains of the frozen earth. The mix of fire and ice turned the octopus into a fresh seafood salad. It had no intention of being a starter dish and promptly fled, dragging its half-charred tentacles back into the ocean. No more messing with that crazy willow tree. But Yuziyu, who hadn't experienced a hug as tight as the octopus's since his reincarnation, refused to let it off the hook. He yelled, "Hey, get back here!" Despite his shouts, the octopus bolted. Left with no choice, Yuziyu hardened his roots and branches, launching them out to grab every tentacle he could. The scene looked like something out of a horror movie, with branches twisting like a ghost's hair. Once they grabbed hold, they wouldn't let go. Though the octopus was heavy, perhaps a bit overweight, Yuziyu didn't body shame it. With all his strength, he hoisted the multi-ton beast out of the water. Worried it might escape after all that effort, Yuziyu kindly decided to bring it home instead. Faced with Yuziyu's intent, the octopus, which had been planning its getaway, suddenly found itself transported back. Its half-closed eyes seemed to be contemplating what gift to offer in return for Yuziyu's kindness. Then, with a spark of realization, its tiny pupils popped open, as if thinking, "Ah, I got something!" The octopus unleashed a gush of jet-black, corrosive ink, showering Yuziyu from head to toe without giving him a chance to refuse. Caught off guard by this abrupt introduction phase, Yuziyu felt things were heading south. He let out a scream, but it was too late to stop the attack. The sky and earth darkened, everything coated in blackness, obscuring even Yuziyu's roots and branches. The octopus collapsed onto the ground with a loud thud, utterly drained from its intense display of affection. Surely, it thought, this was the perfect opportunity to slink back into the ocean to recover. But from the inky shadows where the willow tree once stood came a faint dripping sound. Something twisted and emerged from the corrosive ink, its form gradually becoming clear. Yuziyu's enhanced roots coiled protectively around his entire tree. Once the black sludge finally slid off, Yuziyu peeked sheepishly out at the world. His system chimed in, warning him that mutated branches had suffered 40% damage and regeneration skills needed to be activated immediately. His roots, heavily corroded, had lost much of their attack power, requiring time to recover fully. This corrosive ability is terrifying. Yuziyu had tried desperately to keep this rank 3 octopus by his side, and as a result, his roots were horribly eroded, Luckily, he had reacted quickly enough to preserve over half of his roots. Otherwise, he might have been reduced to a victim of that pitch-black toxin. The green brute, seeing Yuziyu still standing strong, frantically burrowed its tentacles into the ground and dashed toward him. The ink-soaked terrain between them was pockmarked like an old highway left unpatched for decades, blocking the octopus's advance. Impatient as ever, it let out a shrill screech, waving its tentacles enthusiastically toward Yuziyu as if to express even more affection. But Yuziyu had had enough. Raising his level 4 mutated branches, he combined them with his ice element, summoning the frozen earth once more to completely encase the colossal octopus in solid ice. From a half-charred, half-raw state, Yuziyu turned the octopus into a massive frosty sculpture. Only after reeling back his mutated branches did he take in the scene. The pitted ground had been sealed over with ice within a radius of several dozen meters, the frozen octopus standing out like an eerie centerpiece. Had he been a few seconds slower, the octopus might have crushed him and sealed his fate. Gazing up at its gaping, toothy maw blocking the light above, Yuziyu couldn't help but marvel. Truly, rank 3 beasts love fiercely, nearly logged me out of the server for good. He summoned the peregrine falcon leader and ordered it to call the gang back. And what for? Surely you've guessed it already. Octopus feast time. In these mutation days, with so few living beings left, a fresh meal delivered right to their doorstep was a blessing. That night, Yuziyu's multi-species company lit a massive bonfire, slowly roasting the octopus over skewers. The employees, long accustomed to eating forest fare, were ecstatic at the rare treat of freshly caught seafood. But when they bit into it, their teeth wouldn't sink in. Qingzhao strained his jaw, lips peeling back over beef jerky-like flesh, but even he couldn't tear through it. Was the octopus's skin just too tough? Not quite. The real issue lay with their boss's food preservation skills. The octopus, once fresh, had been frozen, thawed, scorched, and then frozen again. Naturally, the quality had gone downhill. Still, seafood was a rare delicacy. His subordinate, Bro 8, shoved an entire tentacle into his mouth and promptly choked on it. Good heavens, why so greedy? Someone exclaimed. Take it slow. There's enough for everyone. Stuffing food like that is a surefire way to choke. Imagine explaining in the afterlife. I died because I was too greedy and ate myself to death. On the other side, the clueless tiger was wandering around with a bundle of octopus guts, making Thorn feel utterly disgusted. I'm a vegetarian, and you're teasing me with that. Huh, tiger? Don't you dare bring it over here, or I'll punch you. Laughter and chatter rang out beneath Yuziyu's willow tree, warming his heart a bit. Ninetails wasn't eating, but stood beside him, enjoying the lively atmosphere like a New Year's Eve gathering. It had been a long time since the company had been so bustling. Everyone had been too busy expanding territories, heads down and focused. Looking down at the ancient emperor crocodile, whose skin now looked like his own bloodline, Yuziyu gently asked, "Are you about to break through?" It nodded. The time is near. Though slower than Ninetails in progression, the ancient emperor crocodile remained one of the leading figures. Turning to the tiger, who was twitching its wings in delight, Yuziyu clicked his tongueless mouth. Why are you still stuck at the initial stage of rank 1? Huh? White tigers are rare and fierce, but you don't seem ambitious at all. Hearing Yuziyu's words, the tiger assumed it was being praised for its lack of greed and displayed an adorably smug expression. Oh, for heaven's sake, I'm scolding you for standing still, not praising you. What are you smiling about? Utterly helpless, Yuziyu realized even his scolding would earn a thank you from this tiger. Below him, the roasted octopus spun continuously, emitting a tantalizing aroma. Thorn glanced at its massive size, silently marveling at the company director's growing boldness. Anyone who dared step into his territory would immediately be turned into a dish. At this rate, Yuziyu might someday wield the power to cook the entire world if they kept provoking him. While munching noisily, Qingzhao suddenly looked up and asked the rat beside him, who was also enjoying the grilled octopus, "Hey, don't you feel like someone's missing?" The rat immediately guessed. You mean that quiet guy who always wears a hood? No, Qingzhao dismissed the guess. I'm talking about someone else. Suddenly, the missing one jumped out of nowhere, startling both of them. Hurry up and join us before we charge you for being late. Calls echoed, and food was passed around enthusiastically among the employees, their lively chatter filling the area. No one seemed to notice the white-feathered figure inside a dark cave. The white crane was shedding tears, its body trembling as it stayed hidden, not joining the festive celebration with its colleagues. The author hadn't drawn much of the white crane lately, usually pairing it with the clueless tiger, so sometimes even its existence was overlooked. Now, it wept quietly in a corner. Was it because cranes don't have teeth to bite octopus, or because no one invited it, leaving it feeling lonely? Yuziyu enjoyed the warm and joyful atmosphere for a while. An idea popped up out of nowhere. Reaching a few roots into the roasted octopus, now a pinkish orange due to overcooking, he fished around for a bit and pulled out 3 hearts. Despite the charred exterior, the hearts remained unchanged in color. Who cooked this? Call the chef over. I need a word. But his employees didn't care whether the food was overcooked or not, nor how much octopus they'd already stuffed into their mouths. Anything unusual caught their eyes immediately, leaving them drooling with curiosity. Even the big names like Cuijo and the ancient emperor crocodile couldn't take their eyes off it. They'd probably never seen an octopus heart before. Maybe they didn't even know octopuses had hearts. Judging by their expressions, every single one of them wanted a bite. For those unaware, octopuses have 3 hearts and 9 brains. Don't believe it? Just Google it. Next time you eat octopus, see if you can find a blue heart. The heart of a rank 3 octopus was like a rare treasure formed by the heavens and earth. In cultivation terms, it was akin to a spiritual pill that accelerated one's advancement. If you ever find a blue heart in an octopus, eating it and sprouting wings would definitely follow the formula. With so many salivating over just 3 hearts, Yuziyu decisively chopped them into smaller pieces. Each fragment floated toward his impatient employees. Cuijo and the ancient emperor crocodile eagerly watched for Yuziyu's signal, though the trio before them looked ready to pounce and gobble it up. Their mouths were already wide open, practically inviting the pieces to land inside. Come on in! We'll welcome you with love. This tiger ought to join Qingjiao and friends, seeing as its brain seems to shut down completely at the sight of food. Mouth wide open, ready to catch the next bite, while Thorn gracefully reached out with her hand to take the dessert. Oh wait, did she said she was a vegetarian? Perhaps this would become Honey Badger's new favorite after its love for dried beef and pork. Holding the food in both hands, its mouth gaping wide, its flushed face was a mix of embarrassment and the effort to stop itself from devouring too quickly. Once everyone got their share, Yuziyu finally gave the go-ahead. Eat up! This is a rare delicacy. See how good it is. As soon as ancient Emperor Crocodile took a bite, its mouth lit up with a dazzling purple glow, while Qingjiao's mouth emitted a similar light despite his tightly clenched teeth. From where the two stood, a beam of intense light shot into the sky. Who knew if it carried the aroma of grilled octopus with it? Unbelievably, the octopus hearts hadn't even reached the stomachs of Qingjiao and ancient Emperor Crocodile before they started leveling up. The clueless tiger paused mid-bite, staring dumbfounded in admiration. But Yuziyu let out a thunderous scream as the light dimmed, revealing ancient Emperor Crocodile's new form. The rank 2 crocodile now looked like Godzilla with 99 horns stuck all over it. At this stage, ancient Emperor Crocodile resembled the bull demon, able to stand on 2 legs and transitioning into a half-beast, half-human form. It looked like an ancient mythical beast, straight out of legend. Beside it, Qingjiao, who had also advanced to rank 2, looked like he had just returned from 80 years of hard labor in an African coal mine. His entire body was jet black, covered in sharp spikes, with only his pitch-black eyes and beefy lips remaining recognizable. Yuziyu's eyes widened as he took in the sight of their new forms. While ancient Emperor Crocodile's ability to stand on 2 legs was impressive, it was Qingjiao's evolution that left him awestruck. Qingjiao's transformation was increasingly inhuman, leaning toward an earth elemental nature. His aura no longer felt human, and with his clenched fists and intense pose, he looked like a villainous character who had just stolen some forbidden power. His form was so demonic it was uncanny, yet Thorn, with her peculiar taste, ran over and exclaimed, "Oh my gosh, Qingjiao! You're not just handsome, you're outrageously handsome now!" Qingjiao, clearly pleased, told her to step back a little so he could show off just how strong and good-looking he truly was. Flexing every muscle in his body, he imagined a giant mosquito sucking his blood and let out a fierce roar. Slamming his massive hand into the ground, he created something so astounding it left everyone with jaws dropped and eyes bulging. The ground beneath Qingjiao transformed into a massive building that soared into the sky, with Qingjiao standing on top, arms crossed, looking incredibly cool. The newly built structure floated like a mountain above Yuziyu's head. While impressive, it had to be said, his taste in architecture was horrendous. Despite his powers, he chose an ant colony design that left even Thorn speechless. His big boss, however, didn't seem to mind. Looking up at Qingjiao perched atop his new tower, he yelled, "Master, look at me. Am I amazing or what?" Admittedly, it was impressive. With this power, Qingzhao could easily build luxury villas in historic districts and rake in the cash. The crowd below showered him with praise, but as soon as Flash joined in the compliments, Qingzhao suddenly collapsed like a car running out of gas. Raising a thumbs up to thank his audience, he gasped for air, signaling the end of his mountain god act. His body returned to its normal color in just seconds, but he looked utterly worn out. Moments ago, his peers had drowned him in a flood of admiration. Now, they quickly turned on him, mocking, "What's this? Can't even finish the act without running out of steam? So useless." Using up all his spiritual energy in one go had left him in this sorry state. Next time, maybe tone down the theatrics, big guy. Seeing his big brother about to pass out, Thorn yelled from below, "Hey bro, you about to kick the bucket or what? You only flexed a little, man." Qingzhao, too drained to respond, collapsed, but was thankfully caught by a massive dark hand. Despite its size and sharp anchor-like nails, the hand gently cradled Qingzhao without leaving a single scratch. Bringing Qingzhao closer, the ancient emperor crocodile let out an exaggerated sigh. "So, was that dramatic fall part of the script, little bro? Looked a bit too smooth to not be staged." Qingzhao, all muscle yet now limp like a rag doll, could only lift his face and squeeze out 3 words, "Thank you, bro, for," looking utterly miserable. Crocodile squinted its eyes and responded with a low grunt, its jagged teeth glinting. Since evolving, it had lost its deep crimson hue, the hallmark of UZU's lineage, and returned to its role as just another employee. Yet UZU seemed quite pleased, gazing at the crocodile's form while thinking to himself, "Our boy here looks more and more like a colossal dragon. Could he really evolve into one someday?" No one knows what UZU was imagining, though. What kind of evolution theory says a crocodile can turn into a dragon, anyway? In its current form, the ancient emperor crocodile was downright terrifying. Putting it among the 9 great beasts was absolutely the right call from the start. Even though it suppressed its spiritual energy, a raw, indescribable power radiated from its body. Adding to this was its new skill, Bloodthirsty Tyrant. This ability increased its rage proportionally to the severity of its injuries, boosting its combat strength, speed, and recovery several-fold. This power was genuinely horrifying. The more injured it became, the more it craved destruction. In battle, it was all upside, no downside, destined to be a fearsome force on the battlefield. Suddenly, Thorn shouted in alarm, "There's a lot of strong auras incoming." UZU immediately looked in the same direction and spotted a familiar figure. It was Wine Deity, guzzling from a giant gourd and swaggering like the classic town drunk. Except this drunk wasn't alone today. He was leading a whole gang of thugs, also bears. But not just any bears. These were snow bears from the frozen north, each one with pure white fur and glowing clusters resembling blue flames. Wine Deity's face radiated pride, clearly satisfied with his catch. As he took a step forward, the ground beneath him froze instantly, spreading ice wherever he walked. Qingzhao was the first to shout, "What's with today? Everyone's showing off new skills." With every step Drunken Immortal took, frost spread across the ground, paving the way for his crew of snow bears as they approached UZU, who had been waiting. Silent, UZU watched Wine Deity draw near. A few days ago, he'd given him a task while half asleep and hadn't expected such a spectacular outcome. These polar bears weren't as massive as ice bears, but they exuded an incredible sense of strength. At the front stood Wine Deity, grinning broadly and looking completely out of place among the adorable faces behind him. Grinning non-stop and getting no reaction from UZU, Wine Deity finally broke the silence. "How's it going, Divine Tree? I brought the whole tribe back." 2 young snow bears trailing Brother Nine piped up, seemingly wanting to talk to their new master. However, their childish voices couldn't form proper words yet. UZU, trying to welcome the new members with a warm smile, ended up overdoing it. His forced grin twisted awkwardly, making him look less like a friendly willow tree and more like a nightmarish bogeyman. The 2 young white bears, who had just happily greeted UZU, were now trembling uncontrollably before his friendly but terribly twisted expression. Wine Deity burst out laughing. "Boss, you scared them so bad they're about to wet themselves." UZU didn't buy it, convinced this was his signature adorable face meant for joking with kids. "Whatever, they know who's in charge here. That's what matters," he muttered, glancing over the group of white bears in front of him. He quickly noticed that the 4 leading bears were all at rank 1, a significant achievement. Bringing back 4 rank 1 bears was already a massive feat, not to mention the total of 120 bears the panda had managed to gather. It was more of a tribe than just a group. Bears typically don't travel in such large numbers, so this was no small thing. At the front of the pack was a scarred, rank 2 bear with a battle-hardened aura, likely the alpha of the tribe. Its 3 scars hinted at countless life-and-death battles, and it possessed an impressive innate talent with the thunderous name Lightning Claw. This special ability allowed the bear to channel electricity through its claws, delivering shocks directly into its enemies. Its entire body, from fur to growls, carried an electric charge. The power, Electrostorm Roar, could turn the surrounding area into a thunder-filled zone spanning several kilometers. This one must have been a lightning superhero in its past life, Yuziyu mused. Or maybe it was blessed by Thor to have such ridiculous attributes. Unable to contain his amazement, Yuziyu asked the crucial question. With a tribe this strong, how did you even manage to bring them here? Didn't that ice bear back then refuse to submit even to death? Wine Deity crossed his arms and smirked smugly, as though he'd been waiting for this question all along. Bursting with excitement, he quickly summarized how he had negotiated with the white bears, not to demand their submission, but to form an alliance. And his version of alliance wasn't the dramatic die together in glory kind. Instead, he offered them full board and lodging, closing the deal swiftly. That's something I can handle, Ziyu said, wrapping a branch affectionately around Wine Deity's neck and giving him a thumbs up. Well done, little bro. I've got the land, and I'm ruling a whole kingdom now. Leave the food and clothes for our citizens to me. The alpha bear let out a growl, seemingly agreeing with Wine Deity's words. Though Yuziyu couldn't understand it, Ninth Brother interpreted immediately. It's saying that as allies, you can fully rely on them. All right, who's got pen and paper? Let's sign the contract, Yuziyu exclaimed, though no one handed him anything. Forget it, I'll just shake hands with the alpha and call it a day. With the alliance quickly established, the crew decided it was time to celebrate round 2. A golden monkey, riding atop a wild boar, appeared carrying a massive jar of wine. Its intent was clear, to toast the newly formed friendship, not because they planned on drinking until they couldn't go home, of course. Ah, what's a barbecue without wine? Yuziyu declared, allowing the second banquet to commence on the spot. Whether they'd move on to karaoke for round 3 after finishing the wine remained to be seen. The jar hadn't even been opened yet, and Wine Deity was already ready to dive into it for a swim. Fortunately, the golden monkey held him back, sparing the rest of them from drinking after him. For now, matters were wrapped up. Yuziyu saved a piece of the octopus heart for Leng Feng and entrusted Qing Zhao to deliver it to him. A rank 3 beast had brought them so much: food, toys, evolution materials, and countless spiritual points. And a new skill, too. Come on, show me what you've got, Yuziyu thought with anticipation. The system informed him that this was a skill called transference, allowing him to shift a part of his consciousness and spiritual energy to a new tree. Still, it wouldn't let him become human. If used for a prolonged period, he could potentially fix himself permanently to the new tree. This skill sounded surreal, letting him split his consciousness and implant it into a tree that didn't belong to the willow family. That would mean Yuziyu could turn into a mushroom, a crepe myrtle, a spinach, or even a plum tree. Just the thought sent chills down his spine. He had no interest in becoming some kind of split-personality creature present everywhere. The idea of becoming a mushroom made him want to give up immediately. Never mind, I'll think about this later, he decided, and turned back to fiddling with the system interface, examining the skill points and various features. Meanwhile, he ignored the rowdy chants of 1, 2, 3, drink from his subordinates. Far from Yuziyu's misty nation, there lay a serene grassland with a calm, reflective lake. This time, the scene wasn't about some gigantic mutant catfish, but rather a peculiar 7-colored flower. The flower seemed freshly bloomed from a strange, twisted trunk, with tender purple leaves fluttering gently in the wind. From the subconscious of this peculiar plant emerged a question: where am I? Initially, one might think such fertile soil had given rise to a brilliant 7-colored flower. But no, it floated atop the water. Somehow, its roots were strong enough to lift the flower above the swirling vortex beneath it. Suddenly, from the whirlpool, a deep red beam of light shot up. I thought for sure it would be a 7-colored rainbow beam or something flashy like a nightclub strobe light. Instead, it was a simple beam of spiritual energy. Simple, yet commanding respect. In White Emperor City, 100 kilometers away, its high walls and fortified gates provided no shield from this phenomenon. Even from that distance, a transcendent being sniffed out the peculiar aura emanating from the flower. A man with white hair flowing in the wind stood tall. At first glance, it was evident he was no ordinary soldier. He was none other than Wang Hao, the city lord of White Emperor City and one of the 10 legendary masters of the Federation. With a sharp glance behind him, he ordered his subordinates to immediately inform the Federation about the emergence of this new mutation near their city. Also, rally the forces. We'll head there to investigate right away. Wang Hao's fiery temper was evident as he swiftly led his men, wasting no words. News of Wang Hao leading a team to claim the spiritual energy source quickly reached Sea Guardian City. Jealous voices soon emerged. That guy's so lucky. Something so rare had to show up near White Emperor City. A brawny, blue-haired man grumbled before the screen. Seizing the chance, one of his subordinates added fuel to the fire, mocking Wang Hao as an undeserving city lord who probably stumbled into his position. Thinking his comment would earn praise, the subordinate instead found himself punched square in the face. Blood streaming from his nose, he could only clutch it in humiliation. Clenching his fist tightly, Zhao Zhao warned his subordinate to keep his mouth shut. Wang Hao is a city lord, one of the Federation's 10 masters, and a rival I've respected and sparred against for years. Who are you to run your mouth? Knowing Wang Hao had already set out, Zhao Zhao couldn't afford to lag behind. Even if his intel came late, he'd do whatever it took to catch up. More cautious subordinates quickly rallied the forces without saying anything foolish. Knowing Zhao Zhao's temper, a dense surge of spiritual energy enveloped him as he prepared to set off, his fiery nature matching his burning resolve. Zhao Zhao was determined to claim the mutated plant for himself. Wang Hao, aware that once the Federation caught wind of this exotic treasure, factions would swarm to seize it, pressed forward with urgency. Yet he hadn't anticipated that beyond those openly assembling forces, hidden powers were also moving to claim their share. Before long, what was once a quiet scene had turned into a boiling cauldron, all over a single 7-colored flower. Inferno City, under clear blue skies, the city's outward tranquility masked the chaos brewing within. Xiaoling stood casually on a rooftop, asking the man behind her, "Has that flower, said to surpass even the legendary mutant trees, appeared?" The man, his collar stylishly turned out in a classic vampire fashion, was none other than Kylie, the vampire who is Gula's next generation. He confirmed, "Yes, for the sake of seizing this divine flower, major cities have already dispatched people. There are even several covert squads being sent out." Xiaoling nodded lightly, taking in the information without further comment. While she appeared serene, her mind was anything but at ease. The Federation's so-called unity was laughable. The moment something valuable surfaced, like this multicolored flower, alliances and brotherhood pacts fell apart. Every city sought to claim the flower for its own, completely disregarding any treaties or agreements. For Xiaoling, it wasn't about the flower's allure, but the necessity of participation. After all, letting anyone else secure such a prize would undoubtedly spell trouble for the Misty Nation. So even if she didn't care for the gaudy thing, she had no choice but to join the fray. Inform the Gen Army, join me, and let's go full force to snatch the flower pot. Kylie received the order and immediately transformed into hundreds of bats, darting away at lightning speed. This was one of his advantages that Xiaoling retained for quick messaging. Once he had gone, Big Bird flew over to Xiaoling, tasked with spreading the word to everyone back home. The peregrine falcon flapped its wings a few times before soaring into the sky, racing through clouds and wind, heading back to UZU's headquarters at Misty Mountain. Unlike the North Ridge with its feasting and drinking, Misty Mountain looked like a giant fortress, with layers of roots forming high dome-like structures bristling with thorns. Just a glance might make you feel like you've stumbled into a horror movie. Inside, in a meeting room filled with introverted, serious faces, everyone gathered around Bull Demon, who had just received Peregrine Falcon's news. Xiaoling was leading the Gen Army to snatch the precious flower. If Xiaoling was after that flower, Bull Demon had to speed up to catch up. Tossing its shaggy head, it ordered Peregrine Falcon to fly to North Ridge and inform the company director to summon Crocodile back to guard Misty Mountain while the big players handled business. It seemed Bull Demon hadn't used the weapon bestowed by the sacred tree for a while. Now that the chance had come, it planned to show the world the true meaning of fear. Standing up with its axe in hand, it told the followers, "I'll scout ahead." Splash! A strong step landed in a green puddle, followed by several others passing through the same spot. The group of superhumans led by Wang Hao was making their way deeper into the swampy forest, heading toward the location of the precious flower. They were highly cautious, but even so, Wang Hao had to remind them to slow down once inside, sensing something was off. Since entering the swamp, Wang Hao had felt as if something was trying to cloud their minds, dulling their alertness. He couldn't quite pinpoint what it was, but felt an eerie and inexplicable strangeness in the stillness of the trees, grass, and water. With a nose keener than a woman sniffing out her cheating partner, and a sixth sense sharper than that of anyone on a revenge mission, Wang Hao felt the oppressive sensation intensify as they ventured deeper. Could it mean they were closing in on the flower? Was this flower some kind of psychological manipulator? Suddenly, a team member behind him coughed painfully, clutching their head as if dizzy and disoriented. Lost in thought, Wang Hao was startled by a shout calling out the teammate's name, prompting him to stop and assess the situation. At that moment, Yuan Feng's veins bulged across his face and forehead as he grabbed his head, writhing and pulling his hair, his mouth wide open in agonizing screams. To heighten the tension, Wang Hao roared at the top of his lungs, baring all 36 teeth. "Everyone, get away from Yuan Feng." That shout only served to escalate the tension rather than prevent anything. Yuan Feng swung his sword with all his might, slashing at the nearest teammate and sending blood spraying as the person was flung aside. The others panicked, convinced Yuan Feng had gone mad, yet none of them dared to retreat. Seeing this, Yuan Feng had a clear target, raising his arm to strike with precision. His sword expanded, emitting a blinding golden light as he unleashed the blade slash toward his comrades, scattering them in terror. His moves were deadly enough to kill even a rank 1 mythical beast. Yuan Feng moved like his namesake, a storm, slashing at the nearest teammate who dropped dead instantly. With the situation spiraling out of control, Wang Hao abandoned his shouting act, charging straight toward Yuan Feng and intercepting his attack with an outstretched arm. Quick to counter, he delivered a blazing red blow to Yuan Feng's head, the sound ringing out loud and clear. Whether Yuan Feng could recover his senses was uncertain, but from other perspective, it seemed like someone just hit the log out button and disconnected him from the server for good. Someone shouted, "This is not good. Get out of the way." Sweating bullets, but still glued to his cigar, he couldn't fathom why Yuan Feng suddenly lost control. They were heading into the area of the precious flower. Could it be causing people to lose their minds? Just as the question was asked, both men felt something strange. Their irises shifted from brown to green, a clear sign of psychological manipulation. Then, they began mirroring exactly what Yuan Feng had done moments ago, starting with a thunderous coughing fit, sounding like long-term residents of respiratory. Wang Hao noticed more and more team members falling into the same condition. Sweat streamed down his face, a mix of fear, worry, and utter confusion. The path to the precious flower seemed to stretch further and further away. Meanwhile, the flower remained in the middle of a turbulent whirlpool, as though it was the source of the water's pull, rather than simply growing there by chance. It was as if the rainbow-colored flower itself harbored thoughts, with snippets of phrases surfacing in its consciousness. Words like humanity, federation, and mutant beasts. Was the world really this complicated? Nobody knew who or what it was speaking to, but the flower seemed to have some rudimentary awareness of the outside world. Did it know that people were scrambling to pluck it from its branch? In the icy winds and constant snowstorms of North Ridge, the barren ground suddenly sprouted a robust, golden root, shimmering like sugar candy. But it wasn't something sweet. It was one of Yuziu's roots, newly enhanced. The process had been so agonizing that it felt like dying and being reborn. And that was just one root upgraded to level 4. With 8 more to go, it seemed like there'd be plenty more ahead. Sweat dripped down his smooth, bald head as Big Bird flew in, wings flapping rapidly to relay an urgent report. Finally, the news of the precious flower reached Yuziu. Amazed, he couldn't believe such a flower could outshine even a tree spirit like himself. He foresaw the Federation being thrown into chaos over this flower, with everyone scrambling to snatch it for its seeds to fulfill their own agendas. Yuziu doubted Bull Demon could handle that many human elites. They were there to steal, which meant they likely brought their strongest fighters. But Yuziu couldn't allow the humans to get their hands on that flower. The only one who could take on this task for him was none other than the eldest, Nine Tails. Standing by as if anticipating orders, Nine Tails' that energy flared as Yuziu commanded, "Go! Bring that flower back." Would Nine Tails have to fight tooth and claw against the humans to claim the flower, a flower that could speak, breathe, and lament? And what exactly was this flower, with its knowledge of the world around it? Could it, like Yuziu, also be a reincarnated soul?